Hi guys, welcome to Webgains Transform. Today we've got a fireside chat with two people who probably don't need introducing, but I'll do so anyway. We've got Jamie Edwards and we've also got Joe Hart. So I don't know if you guys want to introduce yourselves quickly.
I'm Joe Hart.
He's the guy.
Football, played plenty of it currently at Tottenham, and also got a blogged podcast page that I'm working on with Jamie. I'll let him talk more about that.
Jamie Edwards, performance coach, co-host with this guy. Really looking forward to this fireside chat. Kind of an extension of what we do, but really it's the mix between how does the sporting mindset apply in the business world, and then more importantly in the biggest game of all is in the game of life. So yeah, we're very excited to be here.
Nice. What kind of brought you guys together originally? What started this?
Me having my first real kind of problem in the sporting world. Career path kind of took me gradually from the age of 14 onwards, just step by step to the point of never really feeling like there was going to be anything other than success, other than positivity. When was it, Jay? 2013.
Yeah.
Just hit a moment in form where I couldn't do what I knew I could do. I knew how to do it, but I just couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Not consistently. Searching for a way, getting really frustrated, getting really angry, to the point of staring down the barrel of my first drop-in from the football team, which, you know, everyone knows that isn't that big a deal, but in my life at the time that was huge. That was a real big. And I've always been one to work at things, always been one to try and make the best of a bad situation, but I just couldn't. Got suggested to maybe speak to a mental coach, and I was like, you know what, I need to do it, and we got put into contact, and we can take it from there.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that most people, Jack, in a career that, and again, if with the application to life as well, if you're going like this and things are going well, then all of a sudden it doesn't go well. The first question that comes to mind is, what do I do?
Yeah.
I remember driving on the M56 past the airport and to make the call to Joe, and he said very it's clear as day. He said, I don't know what to do. And I said, do you know how to play in goal? And he went, yeah. I said, are you training hard every day? And he went, yeah. I said, you already know what to do. It's asking you, who do you need to be, not what do you need to do. And I think that's where, the challenge is, when it doesn't matter, when you as successful as he's been and as successful as people are in the day jobs, when you get a challenge, this goes, what do I do?
Yeah.
It doesn't say, who do I need to be?
I think that's quite common as well in business at the moment, obviously with everything that's happened with COVID. People are working for massive conglomerate businesses, safe as houses jobs, and all of a sudden made redundant after being there for decades. What do you do?
Yeah.
Where do you start? What do you even do? Most of the time it's people going on LinkedIn and sort of looking at where they could go immediately, but I think people find themselves lost.
Yeah.
Which kind of leads on to what we were discussing the other day about uncertainty in life and in your work life and how that impacts personally. I know obviously you, Joe, you've been in public eye for decades. How does that affect you when you have uncertainty on the pitch or in training when you come home then after work?
I think public eye is something you learn to it just becomes your normal. It becomes everyone's kind of got their own public eye. That's how I see it, their perspective. And one thing that I always go back to with Jamie is why we kind of started doing what we're doing, is knowing the pressures that come with your own public eye. Young children, young players whose public eye is their school team around them, their school friends, and the pressures they feel from that. At the end of the day, that's kind of, we just grow up and the same things happen. It's still our school friends, it's our peers, it's our people who know, who can influence us. So to start with, did what every man does. Leave me alone, fine, I'll deal with it. Then slightly more aggressively, like, leave me alone, stay out of my business, I'll deal with it. And then I just discovered this kind of, I really, really enjoyed this part of my journey with Jamie of, and something that we've worked on together, and it's helped me realise that there's no point in having people around you that you love and trust. There's no point in having them if you're not going to use that. because me personally, if one of my inner circles upset, one of my inner circle needs help, I want to help them. I'll do anything to help them. So why would I not do the same? Why would I not let people have honest opinions on me, honest appraisals of what's going on, and work together with the people around me? So to answer your question, to start with, just try to bat it off. I'm the kind of alpha in the family, leave it alone, I'll deal with it, I've done it before, don't ever question me, to the point of everyone's human, everyone's got feelings, and it's such a blessing to have people around you that love and care and use them.
Yeah. Is that common to think in the business world as well? People coming home and just sort of trying to turn off, ignore it?
Yeah, I think it's like, the whole I'm leaving it at work and then coming home. It's going to sound like contradictory, because when you say leave it at work, but then actually when you come home,
you never leave it at work.
You don't, because it comes out, and it comes out in frustration or anger or even shutting down. So what you've got to do is then, like Joe said, use the people, but it's also, your inner circle have got to be aware of listening. Yeah. Sometimes when you see the person closest to you shut down, sometimes you shut down, and so that's, we call that a chat. You don't want to talk about it because you assume they don't want to talk about it. So it's actually creating the space in the relationship. Yeah. And I think that's the big thing with the workplace. It's having the ability to come home and talk about it in a way that's constructive, as opposed to come home and, I say be angry, but you got 2 minutes and that's it. But then you got to change.
That makes sense. And in terms of then the chats that you have at home, as opposed to what have chats in the workplace, then does that differ? Does that change?
I think you've got to understand the distinction between a chat and a conversation. So chat is what you want people to hear, and you're not really being very, very honest. And when the first time we met, I said, we can either chat or we can have conversation. Which one do you want to do? Yeah. And the chat is surface level. The conversation is you go deep quickly.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And sometimes the events don't give you the time to have chats. Like, you've got to get to the point. So usually when I get a call, it's because there needs to be an honest conversation.
Right.
Yeah. So if I was going to say anything, if you were going to take that into the business world, most of the honest conversations, Jack, happen outside of the meeting room.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the meeting room, everyone's just diplomatic, saying what, and then you go down to the pub, or you go in the men's room or the ladies, and all of a sudden you start talking about what you really should have been talking about.
Yeah.
Around the table.
Yeah.
And so that's if you get a visual of that for the people watching and listening, it's having the honest conversation in the room.
Yeah. And in terms of then competition, so obviously as a goalkeeper, you're the only one that can play in that position. You're not a defender that can go to midfield. You're not a striker that can drop in. How do you deal with competition? How do you go into work every day knowing that there's competition there for you?
I just respect it, embrace it, and something that kind of really hit home quite recently. Actually, we did a podcast with a guy called Tom Heaton, in football, you'll know him. He made a great point. He said, your only competition is yourself. You can only really put yourself up against yourself. How you're perceived up against your, the other 2-3 goalkeepers is totally up to other people, how they want to see it. They might be right, they might be wrong, but the only person you can really compete with is yourself. And if you're happy and comfortable with that, you'll probably get the best results. And if you're not getting the best results, you'll still be comfortable when it comes to decision time, and you're either picked or not. That's down to another man or another woman's decision. You've done everything you need to do.
Right. And in terms of the workplace, so there's 2 ways that we can look at competition. Is someone potentially going for another role that you want, but also external competition, and how you make sure that as a business you sort of work towards a shared goal in order to beat the competition.
Yep.
How's that sort of transferred, when you talk to footballers and then to business professionals?
Outside of sports can really take a lot from the mentality. If you're going to get the best out of yourself, that there are certain things that are out of your control. There's certain decisions that are outside of Joe's control as a goalkeeper. When you then turn it inward and say, I'm going to do everything I can do to be the best I can be, and If they go with it, great. If they don't go with it, that's also great. I'm going to have a better way of asking questions and going, what is it that I need to do to be better next time? The minute I start concerning myself about the other person, then I get into frustration, anxiety, and things that are not in my control. So if they bring in let's say they bring in a better player in your position, you're not in control of that. Not in control of that. In the workplace, it's, am I willing to collaborate? I love the goalkeepers union because these guys are going up against each other and they're going up against themselves, but there's like this camaraderie of the shared goal. I'm supporting you if it's you, and you support me if it's me.
Yeah.
I think that's something that in a team you could really take into the business world.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think the goalkeepers union is very different. I think everyone you share the same experiences and therefore share the same
goalkeeper
heartache.
union.
Yeah.
Are you in the goalkeeper?
Yeah.
Really?
So you can kind of feel, if you drop one in, you know that you can.
I'm loving this.
People, you share the same heartache, don't you, a little bit, and you understand the mistakes that are made. And I think in the business world, that's something you can always take into, isn't it? Everyone's made those mistakes. Everyone's been there. They've had that time where they might have sent the email that they shouldn't have done, or in the heat of the moment. And I think it's just how you support that to then progress.
There are two aspects to it. There's your role, and then there's the bigger picture.
Yeah.
So the goalkeeper has his role and the bigger picture and the contribution to, the team or the mission. And I think for a goalkeeper or an individual in the business, it's, yes, you've got to take care of what you're doing, but you've also got to be considerate to how do we approach that together.
Just to be clear, it's not a given, the goalkeeper union. It's not a given. It's it's a respect thing. And as much as I would, whether I'm chosen or not, if I am chosen, I fully expect to be supported. Same way I fully expect myself, and I'd like to think that if someone else is chosen in front of me, they expect me to support them.
Yeah.
And if I don't, there's definitely a problem, and it needs addressing, because we've got to have competition, we've got to have fire, but I think respect coming into the workplace is one of the most important things you can ask for.
Who manages that? Do you manage it yourselves?
Of course, yeah. Of course. And then me as a senior goalkeeper now, there's always a group. There's not often there's a bunch of young guys. There's also a goalkeeper coach. We're very lucky in our position. We're specifically, and that's where management's required. Because if there isn't harmony, there isn't all the time. We know what people are like, and I get that, and I respect that. If someone came in and didn't want to support me, fine, that's them. They've made their own bed, they'll lie in it, but I will carry on doing what I need to do. I won't get drawn into a battle. It doesn't then become, well, I can disrespect you more, because then it becomes ugly. You need to stay strong in what you're thinking. And then if you need to, it's not snitching. You need to go and approach your manager or your coach or your colleagues and say, how do we feel about this? Because this isn't right, this isn't helping the work, this isn't helping us as a team. And that could be me sat as third choice on the bench and this guy playing, but still it's just a bad dynamic, you don't need it.
Yeah, that's pretty applicable to the workplace, isn't it? You pretty much say it there, you go to your manager.
Yeah, it's going to the manager and having the honest conversation, but actually creating an environment between the 3 or the 4 with the goalkeeping coach that you can have those conversations. And that's usually where high performing teams fall down, is because they can't have those conversations, or they'll have them outside of the room.
I guess it depends on what kind of dynamic you have as to where you do that, isn't it, as well?
Yeah.
And if you do it formally or informally.
Yeah.
The journey from being a Prem champ to potentially moving away from something so high level, what you used to, how did you sort of adapt to that? How did your mentality change a little bit there?
It didn't really. That was something I was clear on. At the time that I was moving away from fighting for titles and potentially to clubs that weren't doing the same, I still had the England spot, so I still had that always in my sights, always in my thought process of how I need to be, what I need to do to be the best goalkeeper for England. And I always felt that mentality tied in with wherever I was, whether I was playing Sunday League, whether I was going to be playing for abroad in Torino where I didn't really speak the language, but just to make it work, to keep my standards, I'd been at a club for
Standards.
I'd been at a club for 10 years. I built relationships with people off the field, strength and conditioning coaches, physios, people who knew me. You know, I didn't even. I had to walk a little bit funny, and someone knew what was wrong with me.
Yeah.
So that was probably the biggest change, having people around me that didn't necessarily know me, but I actually quite enjoyed it, because by that time I was a man in the game, and I knew everything I needed to do. So I sourced people straight away. So my first club was Torino. If this is a problem, who do I need to speak to? This. Straight sit down with the goalkeeper coach. And I already knew what I needed. And I respected them. Maybe they didn't have the facilities, but if they didn't have the facilities, I'd go and do it myself. You know, I'd never been a member of a gym, ever.
Mm-hmm.
I'd always had Man City, but straight away I found out the Virgin Active was in the city centre, and I went and made myself a part of that, because I didn't really think the gym was up to the standards that I wanted to be at.
Right.
And that's not me saying this place is not good enough. That's me saying, fine, everyone works differently, I'll go somewhere else and get it. So I think I was lucky that I'd already knew what I needed to do by that time, and you know, I was going to go out and get it. Nothing. I wouldn't let anything stop me.
That's the hardest thing, isn't it, Jamie? Though, to know what you need to do.
Yeah, I think, you know, Joe's said senior player, that comes with experience. I think you get better. You don't get better just by doing this. You get better with that. That's the same in business, the same in life. So it is hard to do. But, you know, the note I've just made there is the looking outside of yourself. It's the looking outside of what is your normal environment for different answers to different questions. Joe was in a period where he needed to ask different questions. You know, he couldn't keep doing the same thing. I remember we were about 12 months into us working together, and I remember asking, what's different today than when we first met? And you said, well, 12 months ago, Man City, my club, did this, and this. Now, outside of that, I was, you know, yoga, strength and conditioning, preparation. You had the chef anyway. So there was this reliance on someone else doing it, and then there's this ownership, and that's a transition of, you know, team in a circle. So very important for anybody, whether it's in the workplace or outside, is what am I looking for outside of just my normal environment? Yeah,
We discussed that, didn't we, as well, about the workplace providing you with training or upskilling, but also going out and doing it yourself, going out and getting a management qualification, or going out and learning a language. You know, you had to learn a language as well, but self-development outside of that workplace is what stands you in a good place. Then, you know, if something does happen, if COVID happens and you become redundant, what do you have? Yeah,
and it's being taking it like a personal mission to upskill.
Yeah.
You know, a personal mission that you're not just thinking, I'm not studying for a qualification. I'm actually, you know, I'm learning to make it really practical so I can apply it, not just because there's an end piece of paper and a reward. It's like,
And we discussed something that came out there. The mentality never changed. Jamie, we had a chat, didn't we, about Joe's mentality and the world-class mentality in every shape of life. What, you know, describe what we discussed there, because it's quite interesting to hear that.
Yeah, I think, you know, I'm fortunate. I've worked with, you know, a handful of people who I could put in that bracket of they've been world-class. Yeah, Joe being one of them. But I remember that, you know, again, early days, it was like, how good do you want to be? And, you know, you often said it was, the first thing you couldn't get it out. And it was, there's a humbleness to that. And then there's like, you know, well, you know, was the clarity of where does he want to be? And I remember specifically one story he told me. He said, you know, he used to go into hotel rooms and he used to go in and just chuck everything, you know, on the bed.
Yep.
Yeah, do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
And then he said, well, if I'm going to be world class, I can't just walk in and just go, you know, like this. There's an order, there's a protocol, there's a mentality about that, and it's not just on the football pitch; it's off. So I think we just use world class as as a metaphorical phrase. You use it in your business, don't you?
Yeah.
You know, so
World-class mentality.
I don't know. It's, you know, you've been around. You know, you've been world class. You've been around world class. You're around world class right now. What does it mean to you, world class? Either as a phrase or as a reminder.
I think there's few that fit the world class bracket in just talent. I think, like you said, it's a complete package. It's what do they bring to the team?
Mm-hmm.
What are they like? Just, you know, strip them back of being anything other than a person, and are they still that guy in your eyes? Because you know, we can all have like an opinion of someone because what they can do on the football field, or even now, you know, you can roll your eyes at it, but if they've got a strong social media following, like, that is important. It's important now, and it's hard to see past that. You know, someone can walk in the room, Jack could be like, oh, that's Andy Grigg, he's I don't know, works with Gymshark, he's got 6.5 million followers, and I don't know anything about him, and just immediately I'd be like, whoa, oh yeah, okay, I see that. And he could be lying to me, he could be talking, like, so I'm just saying, to really find someone world class, you know, your David Silvers, he's the one that just jumps out in my mind. You know, your Vinnies, I've been around it, you know, a lot. I'm not going to name names, but if you strip them back and you just work them out as a person on how they behave, on how they conduct themselves, and then you combine them with their quality and their work ethic, then that's the full package, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that's the strip back bit. It's not the surface, you know, and it's not somebody in the media saying they're world class. It's when, you know, I'm smiling because there's times when I've related it to, you know, whether it's to a Joe or somebody, it's how they are with somebody, whether it's people in their inner circle, whether it's somebody on the street, whether it's, you know, it doesn't have to be an earth-shattering moment. And so for me, for people listening to this, it's that world class isn't just on the sporting field or in the business world. It's actually when you're with the post lady at the counter, that's being world class.
When no one's watching.
Yeah.
When it's down to you as
Yeah.
a person. Yeah, that makes sense. In terms of them people that derailed their careers almost, you know, the people that have sort of gone off when they had the ability, but maybe not the world class attitude. What sort of other traits have you seen in people like that? Is there anything that's sort of been common in those people?
I think just taking the easy way out. You know, people, you know, they want the plaudits. Some people don't even want that. They just, I don't know, there's a kind of self-destruct mode in some people, and that's their brilliance. You know, when we're talking about the guys who really are at the top and then have fallen off, that's a really fine line to balance. And exceptional talent just has proved over and over and over again that it's just not enough. And you know, being that guy from 8 years old being told everything about you is brilliant, to being 25 years old and a guy that you've grown up with and you've never really rated too much, but it's just, you just see them progressing more and more and more because their just mentality is different to you, and you've just not got that base layer, you've just not got that core strength to handle it and to go again, because you never really had to work at it, and that, you know, that you can't, it's not me talking badly about someone who's got that, but some people, you know, you've got to, like I'm saying to Jamie, like the reason we work and the reason I want to work with him and do what we do, because I don't want people to have to hit that bip. I don't want to have to hit that bump. They're going to hit the bump, but I don't want them to have to hit it to then work out what the hell do I do.
Hit it harder. Yeah.
I want them to come up to it and be like, okay, you know, I'm not planning for this. It's going to be difficult, but you know, I've got ways. I've got things I can go back to. You know, or maybe I'll let that go a little bit. I've got a process that I can go. You know, that's why we work, and that's why, you know, the greats really keep going, in my opinion.
How's that transferred, do you think, to business? I mean, it's kind of similar, isn't it, really?
It's exactly the same. It's exactly the same. It's, you know, you can be as talented and be identified as, you know, the guy in the sales department who's just, you know, sales accountant going, you know, making loads of sales. But it's when you think you're really on it, that's when, how do I ask better questions of what do I need to learn? What do I need to, you know, who do I need to speak to? Who can push me? And you know, let's say the greats do that.
Business
You know?
development is quite a good comparison, actually, I think.
Yeah.
You can be selling, and all of a sudden it dries up, and you think, where's the next sale going to come from?
Mm-hmm.
And your belief in yourself, especially the goalkeeper, if you're on your own, you make a mistake, it costs you the goal, doesn't it? And I think sales it's not similar, but there's a comparison between if you don't make the sale, then what have you contributed that month? Because you're based on numbers. If you haven't kept a clean sheet, you've let a goal in. So whose fault is that?
Well, you're saying whose fault, and I think when people get derailed, it's because they look outside of themselves and they blame something. Yeah. So they blame, it was the product, it was my support team, it was my teammates,
Pandemic.
it was the that's a great one. It was the pandemic. Well, we know the events happened, but actually, how did you react to that?
Yeah. I think you see that in business, though, don't you? I mean, some unnamed retailers don't have an online space, so all of a sudden that stock that's sat in shops is just going dead. They're about to sell it off for nothing, whereas others that have adapted to that change, they've reacted to it, and they've gone on and sold more than they probably ever have done online. I think it's changed the business world massively, but it's as you say, it's the resilience behind it and how you train the business almost, isn't it?
Yeah.
To grow that way.
But it's back to whenever I've listened to somebody and they've derailed, it's because they've gone, no, it's not me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You take the objective and run with it.
Yeah.
In terms of then, one sort of final open question for you. How important is it to have a coach or a mentor or a support there?
So I said, and I've said it before, when I started working with Jamie, that's not a cheap expense that everyone can do, and that's not me going out of my way to say that, but now I see it, and now I know what's out there. Even what we're doing, like, it's free. You can work, you can push, you can type a search in. You can literally type a search in for what's on your mind. How do I get stronger with, I don't know, anything. There's ways. If you really want to get better, you can.
Yeah.
You can push it. You can, you can find inspiration. Even better, you can watch people that you don't want to be like. You can learn from people's mistakes. You can follow someone's journey. If you want to get better, there's no excuses. There really isn't, in my opinion. And like I say, I totally get that not everyone can just employ a one-on-one, top mental coach. So I'm not saying that everyone can do that, and I'm privileged and lucky. But I'm saying if I couldn't do that, I'd certainly be looking elsewhere. I'd be watching documentaries. Even your simplest Netflix. You download Netflix and you watch Michael Jordan. Like, how do you not get pumped by that if you want to get better and you want to get the best out of yourself?
I think for that, Jamie, as well, the coach doesn't necessarily have to be someone you employ, though, is it? It can be anyone in business. It could be that you look to have a mentor within the business, isn't it? Yeah,
and I think the business world, business coaching has always been there. One of the things I would say is if the publishers and your advertisers, I think that the word for me is access. Is you can get access to the information. Access is proximity, like this, or it's in a book, it's in a podcast. But people don't use it, Jack. And an example being, a young player that I worked with who played at City, under 18s, many years ago, when I was working with Joe. I don't even think you know this story, but he was in the under 18s. And he was central midfielder. And I said to him, have you talked to the under 21s coach? And at the time, the under 21s coach was Patrick Vieira. Yeah? And he said, no. And I said, why is that? And he said, well, what am I going to say to him? And I said, well, do you know what Patrick won? And he said, yeah, he won a World Cup, FA Cup. He won everything. Everything. Yeah? So what I mean by access is that this young man had access to one of the greatest in his position. Every day he was walking past him, but he never asked him any questions. So after that, he was on a mission to go and. But I think people have that in their life. I think everybody has that. I think today you've got more access to people. We're giving access, through Gloved and the podcast. You give access through the academy. There's access on YouTube. I think that's really important that people understand. Whenever I ask somebody, have you done it? They go, no, I can't do that. So, well, you can.
Yeah.
So that's your coach. The best in the world have coaches. There's a reason for that, because they give you a different perspective. You know, why do they have goalkeeping coaches? Because they can't see the things on their own. You know, why does Michael Jordan have a coach? Because he's the best in the world, or was the best in the world, and he has somebody looking at it from a different perspective. Yeah. And so I believe that people only look at coaching when outside of sports, when things are going wrong.
Yeah, and so you keep that going when it was going right. We discussed that when Messi said in public, didn't he? Joe's probably one of the best goalkeepers I've faced in the last few years. It's keeping that going, isn't it? Keeping that momentum, pushing forward. It's not thinking that you're there. I think that for most people, it's developing this a challenge-based approach to life. When the challenge, but constantly, not just in your sport, but outside of your sport. Yeah. I think we're going to have to leave it there. You've got training. You're going to have to go. So thank you guys for tuning in, and enjoy the rest of the Transform event.